people who, and my dad always told me, people who love the bush and land, he says, those people you can trust. That's what he used to tell me. And I believe that. In my experience working with the settler population, people who are back to the landers, who love just the experience of being in the bush, they have a view and an understanding of our humanness, I guess you could say, and how we interact with nature, and that's a good thing. That's something to build on and build bridges with in our relationships with the indigenous and settler population in this country.
Carry on the tradition. What's going to happen today, just to give you an agenda, we have 3 guest speakers. What will happen is Alex will open the ceremonies. We're going to do a smudge. Luke is getting a smudge ready back there. And we'll do a smudge, something we haven't done for a few years. There's a feather ceremony. We'll pass a feather around and you can speak your mind. PJ Justices from Friends of Temagami will be speaking again today. Tell us what's going on there. They have a map making project on the go once again. Mike McIntosh is coming through the bush. Mike and Mercedes trip up here all the time. They're just back from a 1-month trip with their kids here. Mike is a junior archaeologist student, so Mike has some things to talk to us about the local archaeology here and the finds that they found here, and actually some fairly recent ones. They're very interesting. We also have John Wayne Potts. John was a former councillor down in Bear Island, and he was on the last council and was instrumental in forwarding the land settlement issues that have been outstanding here forever. That's his grandson Luke. He'll be conducting a smudge for us. When that's done, we'll have a lunch and co-mingling and say hello to everybody and have a good time. So
the ceremony site at the campsite, and due to weather, and it's enjoy themselves. And I just want to introduce Wayne and his grandchild for coming. And I want to see all the you people that I'll spend time with later. Because I want to talk to you. You said you camped together in site this summer, and when I met you, and it all turned out good. Thank you all, everybody.
This here is my drum. This is what I learned to express my sentiments and my communication and my communication with my creator. This has become my drum. The red sun rises high. Come rise and go with me. Pack up your weary sheep and all that you can carry. Come Kapwe, we must go to Shingo. That's what the people they say. Leave our river and trees for Shingo. Shingo far, far away. We won't last here long. They say that if we stay, strange men will come here soon and take our lands away. Come Kapwe, we must go to Shingo. That's what the people they say. Leave our river Viva river and trees for Shingle, Shingle far, far away. But one day we'll be strong, we'll rise and fight that day. Come to way we must go to Shingle, that's what people they say. Leave our rivers and trees for Shingle, Shingle far, far away. Chimigwich, I grew up on the land here. Alex and I are childhood friends. We went to the school on Bear Island together, and there's lots of stories that we've been a part of over the years in this area, and the stories of our fathers, grandfathers that we experienced that was a way of life that doesn't exist really anymore. And for myself, I went away to school. I studied, got my degree at Trent University in Native Studies, and got my degree in for education, and became a school teacher and then an administrator, and mostly worked in First Nation communities in the north in Ontario mostly. And so I seen the effects of colonization in the communities in the north. The fallout of that, the generational effects of especially the residential schools in those northern communities was very toxic. The fallout from that, because they were probably hit the hardest with that whole system that was in place, and that fragmented the families in those communities. And it was very difficult, very heartbreaking in a lot of ways to see that, and to try to, like I was working as an educator, trying to help families, trying to help young people to navigate an education system that was, for the most part, imposed on them. It came clear to me in that experience of being part of that process, and the institutions represented in that process. Even though they were band-run schools, we were still using a system that was, developed for Canadians in general, but there were very specific needs in these communities that were not being addressed and met in the families that were very, in many instances, were very wounded, dysfunctional, and damaged as a result of generational trauma from the colonization process. So it was very frustrating as an educator to try to help these individuals when all this other stuff was, we were tripping over this other stuff that was in the way, and we couldn't. It was hard to, and it was, it was hard to get a handle of it. If you could just pull it out of the way and say, okay, get that out of the way, it wasn't as simple as that, because there was layers of it, and in some families it was deeper than others, and it was intrinsic into their being in cases. So then they were hurting each other in this. It's a complicated mess is what it is, what's happened in our communities and our indigenous population. And now as many as are trying to, they work on themselves, they get better, they get stronger, and they get healthy, there's still, the general populace that in general needs that time to heal and space to heal. If you can think of when you're not strong and you're haven't got it pulled all together, you need time and you need space and you need resources. to do that. And there's pockets of that happening in the country. This is not a doomsday message that I'm communicating here, but it's going to take time, and it's going to take that support, the resources, and the space to do it, and also the ones of our people. We need to gather around them, the ones that are stronger, and gather around them and help build them up, get that strength back for them, and those families, and we need to get a handle on that as a people. That's our job. We can't expect the settler population or the government to do that for us. And in some instances, there is that expectation. That's not going to work. It's never going to result in a real, strong recovery. So that's kind of who I am, and that's my thoughts on where we are in this whole reconciliation process, and I'm thankful for people like yourself. Now people who, and my dad always told me, people who love the bush and land, he says, those people you can trust. That's what he used to tell me. And I believe that. In my experience working with the settler population, people who are back to the landers, who love the experience of being in the bush, they have a view and an understanding of our humanness, I guess you could say, and how we interact with nature, and that's a good thing. That's something to build on and build bridges with in our relationships with the indigenous and settler population in this country, and that's to me what they call in the Ojibwe prophecies part of the eighth fire. It's the coming together of those different peoples from the different nations coming together and being one, working together. And that's how I see, that's why I come to this gathering that LP hosts here. I see that, I recognize that in this gathering. So I say miigwech to all of you that are here, and I'm thankful for you and your families, because I know you're here, not just you, your family is here with you. You're part of a family. You grew up, and I don't know all the details of that. So I say miigwech. I'm not going to take up any more time. I know there's other people who want to talk. I can share some more after, but we don't know when this rain's going to. So maybe if somebody else, I know there's a few other speakers, Alex, that were going to speak, so I'll wait. Yeah, and I can come back. I can share another song.
Yeah. Okay. Was Mike going to speak?
Yep.
I can. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll step right out here. My day job is as a teacher. My passion may be living on land and trying to continue on the traditions that exist in this region. But I will try to put my teacher hat back on for a brief moment on a Saturday. I've been tripping Temagami for virtually my whole life. Since I was a child, I started spending time in this area. Grew up in Sudbury, and of course this was virtually in our backyards. But there was an incident about 10 years ago that really piqued my interest in archaeology in this region. And I had come down from a trip through, I believe it was down the Lady Evelyn River on that occasion. And we made camp at Sharp Rock that night. And I decided, being a couple weeks out on the trail, I decided to treat myself to a shave. And I was down by the lake shore, lathering up. I think I had probably just finished my shave, washing off, and something in the water caught my eye, and it was a very thin, very fine-grained blue Hudson's Bay lowland shirt, double-notched bi-faced projectile point, and it piqued an interest in archaeology in this region that has never gone away. And I've at this point I can confidently say I've read virtually everything that has been published on archaeology in the Temagami region, which sounds far more impressive than it actually is, because there's been very little published on archaeology in the Temagami region. As I'd even go so far as to say that archaeology in this region is still in its infancy. There have been numerous archaeological studies on Lake Temagami, the Three Pines site, Sand Point, Witch Point, the Lake Temagami site, which is where Camp Wanapate currently resides. And I read actively everything I can get my hands on to learn more about the archaeology of this region. And it really is fascinating, and I can confidently say at this point, this area has been under virtual constant habitation since about 11,000 years ago. Deglaciation occurred about 10.5 or 11,000 years ago, and this region has been under constant habitation for the last 10 or 11,000 years. The region has changed drastically. In fact, immediately following deglaciation, there was a fairly rapid change on the landscape through isostatic rebound. As the glaciers retreated, the Earth's crust rebounded, and water levels in this area changed drastically very quickly. In about 1,500 or 2,000 years, water levels were in a state of flux. Since about 7,500 years ago, water levels have stabilized. And what that means is the trails, the campsites, the values that we all enjoy today while we're tripping in Temagami have been in use, in virtually constant use for the last 7,000 years or so. We see artifacts being found from the Archaic period right up to the late woodland period. In fact, this summer we found, we spent about 5 weeks out on the land this summer, and we found a number of different artifacts just on this trip, and we do find them from time to time. Of course, we don't believe in removing artifacts from the land. Anything we have found, Alex, well, I don't know where Alex is right now. Yeah. Still has them in his collection. But it really piqued an interest in ourselves, and something we really like to pass on to our children, in the importance of preserving the values that exist on this land. We can talk about tree blazes when we're fighting through some really nasty portages in remote areas of Temagami. All we've got to rely on are tree blazes. However, those tree blazes are only 300, 350 years old maximum, and even that can be a stretch in some of the forest ecosystems around here. But the values, those Nastagan trails, have been in constant use for thousands of years, and it's something I like to remind people of when they are out on the land, when they're staying at these beautiful campsites. Ranger Point, for example, has had documented use for thousands of years, and it's something I really encourage people to think about while they're out there. So many recreational paddlers, I think, paddle through this area and don't have an understanding of the significance of some of these values that are out there. And that's where I really applaud the efforts of groups like Friends of Temagami that have been actively documenting these values, work to get them into the Natural Resource Value Inventory System, so that they are recognized in forest management plans and they can be preserved for future generations. I really feel, if I was to summarize my opinion on what's happening on the land right now, the Nastagan, the Temagami Nastagan, is in and of itself a historical value, an archaeological artifact that exists mostly intact still to this day. There's been disturbances in the forest, there's been deforestation, but most of these values that exist on the land are still intact today. So I really applaud the efforts of Friends of Temagami and other environmental groups like Earth Roots that have worked to preserve these values. And over and above everything else, I really chimigwich to my friend Alex, who has allowed us to become part of his life and spend so much time out here, and all the others that continue on with the traditional lifestyle that exists here. We're very, very thankful to continue to be a part of it. So again, with the weather in mind, I can ramble on about archaeology for hours, but I am going to pass the proverbial feather, I think, over to PJ, who's going to talk a little bit more about some of the mapping efforts that are going on in the land right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I'm PJ Justison, President of the Friends of Temagami. Thank you to John for his efforts in coming out year after year, not only to COTS, but he's come to our AGMs a number of times. Wayne has a CD out that I've played in my truck on my ventures around Temagami, repeated over and over. And the amazing inspiration I find in his music and his words warms my heart. So thank you, sir. I'm going to touch on a couple of quick things. Friends of Temagami, small organization. We do lots of very cool work, portage maintenance. We've been putting thunderboxes out and about on Crown land sites. We have, for a long time, been involved in forestry management planning, which, most of the time I'll contend is a pretty useless process these days. But it, as Mike mentions, we do know going through those processes puts us on record as having some concern and some contention over these forestry management plans. They do manage to put those records in, page 1385 of the Appendix C of the Forestry Management Plan and that sort of thing. There is one particular issue that I'll mention today because it's coming to a head, and I don't have to tell many of the people around this fire about the Red Squirrel Road blockade because they were there. I need them to tell me about that event and that catalyst in time, which they do, and I listen intently. 30 years, 32, 33 plus years later, we're at another catalyst in time, and different road, slightly different area, but we have this Turner Road and the Solus Wildlands that through that forestry management planning process, and it's convoluted and complex, but ultimately they plan on putting this 28-kilometer primary logging road, which means it's never going to go away, through the last remaining intact forest in the Temagami region. And we've gone through the process. We've gone through the meetings. We've gone through the conflict resolutions. Al and I and others have been to many meetings over this stuff. And they continue to push, and they have done some construction. And it's no secret, and certainly I don't mind sharing it with you today, that when COVID happened, we kind of put a pause on that campaign to raise awareness, simply because people had other concerns in their life. How do they stay safe? How do they feed their families? And it just, it was an appropriate time to put a pause on it. Coincidentally, as we did that campaign, First Nations, TFN and TAA became aware of the road issue, and some of those people and departments were well aware of the road, intimately aware of the road, but it got kept fairly quiet in some of their departments. But recently, over the last year, people have become aware, and people are starting to show up and obviously show their concern. And this Tuesday past, Al and I left here early morning and went up to Twinkle Lake in the beginning of this Turner Road construction, which we've done 15 or more times in the last number of years to keep an eye on things. And we went up there and we met an amazing group of people that were around 33 years ago on Red Squirrel Road, and the very, very special thing about that was the majority of people there were Temagami First Nations elders, and they were able to go and see and share their feelings and their initial impressions. Some had been there a few times before in over the last year, and so they're just coming sort of, figuring out exactly what this means to them and what needs to be done about it. The moral of this story is 33 years later, we had a massive conflict in the forest, and we went through this process of, peace in the forest, and everybody was getting along, and they were now consulting with everybody. And you know, if I was on a little bit more of an official stage, I'd hold back a little bit. But as it turns out, that's 30 years of bullshit. They're driving these roads into the forest, and they're not going to stop unless somebody stands up and gets in their way. And that's really where we're at now. As far as what our future plans are, we're a little unsure. We still have to figure out everybody's plans and everybody's intentions. But, you know, I've made it no qualms to not only my organization, but the bureaucrats and the industry that I've dealt with, is that they've taken, they've pushed, and enough is enough. They've not listened, and so this is where we're at now. You know, heads up. This is, I mean, and they know it full well. So that's a little update on Turner Road. There should be more coming in the very near future. Should anybody be interested in camping out at Twinkle Lake this winter, that would be that'd be a good that'd be some good intention. The other piece of FOT's work recently, and for those that have been around and are aware, we've got these amazing maps that Alex Broadbent spent a big chunk of his life and dedication to create. And they are incredibly amazing maps. A number of people here have shared their knowledge and input into developing those maps. We know as an organization that those maps and you know, we talk about they're sort of the bread and butter of our organization, and oftentimes it gets mentioned that, you know, this is really financially, this is one of the ways we can maintain the organization. And honestly, I can tell you, it has nothing to do with finances and money. It has everything to do with documenting the land and what's there and what has changed, and being able to share it with the public to say, here's this beautiful place, this sacred place, this amazing place, and we'll help you get there. So with that in mind, bit of a whirlwind project started around this time last year. We had a young lady approach me who is a new graduate to GIS work and environmental consulting, and through that process we've done a massive amount of work, because, you know, as an emerge nurse who doesn't dabble in environmentalism up until recently, I never would have thought that I would have been submitting hours for somebody to get paid and dealing with their, you know, Canadian pension plan and unemployment insurance. And so over the course of that year, we've come to be able to employ Sarah. And the project morphed into doing one map of the Solus Wildlands, and that was really what we were going to do. And then as we went along, it became, well, we could do maps for the entire area. And so that's what we've done and where we're at. As it turns out, and our friend Mr. Broadbent over here will, I'm sure, be able to attest to, making of these maps and getting all of that intimate knowledge on there is not something that you just snap your fingers and make happen. And so we have work to do on those maps, but hopefully in the next coming months we'll have 1 and 2, and they'll slowly become available. We do have a plan for digital versions and a plan for the public to be able to offer their input and feedback, and to keep those maps updated and current. So keep an eye on that. And in closing, I know a good number of you folks are members of FOT, but It's an easy membership. It's a cheap membership. You don't get much for your membership other than having to listen to me every once in a while. But it is a very cool group of people, and we do some amazing work. On that note, with the raindrops, I'm happy to chat with anybody throughout the day, but I will move it back to Kim. Thank you, Alex, for sharing your place, and thank you again, John, and thanks, Mike, for your historical perspective and accolades that you offered, and thank you everybody for coming.
Alex, do you want to do the feather ceremony? What do you want to do?
I guess would anybody else like to speak? Like I see pass the feather around and you can talk. If you don't have to, if you don't want to, but you can speak, and I'll pass the feather around to. I'll start with the center.
The red sun rises high. Come rise and go with me. Pack up your weather sheet and all that you can carry. Come up where we go to shoot. That's what the people they say. Leave our river and train for Shingle. Shingle far, far away. I just, one of the things, one of the themes I think of this gathering is the changes of the season, and thank you, which to our Creator for all that He's provided to our lands and our well-being in this area, and the people that He brought here. And so with that in mind, I just wanted to share this Thanksgiving song. I'm going to ask my grandson to hold a feather for me while I share quickly. As I mentioned earlier, some of my music is like this, vertical. I sing to my Creator, and this is an example of one of those songs. Thanksgiving song. See the wonders of your hand. Many people of this land. Children's laughter as they play in the pouring rain. Never-ending as our sky, the mighty eagle flies by, rolling fields, rolling rain. I love all you made. The starry blanket of the night, the dancing of the northern lights, the beauty of a perfect dawn, and the setting sun. Colors of the autumn leaves, the sound the wind makes through the trees, the tossing of the waves on a bottom crowd, and all that you can carry. Come Kapwe, we must go to Shingo. That's what the people they say. Leave our river and trees for Shingo. Shingo far, far away. We won't last here long. They say that if we stay, strange men will come here soon.